Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast. Introducing your host for this evening first. He is the host with the most from the West Coast, the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg. And his partner, he has colonized, energized, and revolutionized the podcasting wrestling world today. Your Colonial Champion, Sean
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the podcast made by Smarks for Smarks, talking about professional wrestling around the world. And it is me, not the Colonial Champion, but the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg. I am hosting today. Yes, I am hosting today because my man here needs a little bit of a break after his trip from Florida, but I will introduce him in 1 second. But still, it is good to come to you on the Go Home Show. That is right, the Court-Martail Podcast Go Home Show before the Royal Rumble. Except unlike WWE's Go Home shows, we're actually going to put effort and time and storytelling into this episode. But let me introduce my man. You see, it's so hard for me to sit back here in this studio looking at a guy out here hollering my name. That's what he says to people. When last year I spent more money on split liquor in the bars from one side to this world to the other than you made. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. I'm having a hard time keeping this man down. Woo! The Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty.
If only I had had the kind of week in Florida that Ric Flair would have had, but I did my best. And now I have to be eased back in as gently as possible back into the world of professional wrestling where all of that enthusiasm most of the time leads to bitter disappointment on anywhere but here. And Skylar, I'm so excited because I will have to be eased in a little bit after an incredible week that we will get to at some point talking about somewhere. So stay tuned for all of our shenanigans going on. The only way you're going to get to know about all those, because I might as well get the plug out of the way now, is to like, is to share, is to subscribe, and hit that bell button to all, so every time we post, you will know about it. But I got to be eased in, so I have passed over the reins to Skylar to tell us all about what's gone on since I've been gone.
And boy, howdy, has there been a lot going on. And there's only one way to do that. Hit that intro, baby.
Coming straight to you from the Golden Gate Garage, this is the Wrestle News with Skylar Greenberg.
That is right, folks. It is the news of the week, and boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of things that we need to cover before we get ready for the Royal Rumble and also some AEW stuff. Are you ready, my man?
Let's do this. This is your show.
This is my show, and we're going to start my show by talking about a man that I'm not exactly enthusiastic about drafting to my company, but nonetheless, here he is, Jon Moxley.
Jon Moxley.
So, Jon Moxley has returned to television after a 2-month absence with, those demons that he fights so hard.
See,
demons being alcohol, of course.
I can hear a hint of sarcasm in your voice, which intrigues me. But yes, he is coming back from the rehab.
My thing is that I know Jon Moxley struggles with demons, and for real, anyone who has issues with alcohol, please get help for you and your family. But part of me here's the thing. Did you see this return promo on January 19th?
No, I have seen nothing. I see nothing. I know nothing. So please fill me in.
So he comes back on January 19th. He starts the promo by getting interrupted by a heckler and telling the heckler to fuck off, literally.
Fun.
And then he talks about his time, and I know Jon Moxley, when he's cutting these promos, he can get into it, and he does cut a good promo. But some of the lines he uses are goofy. Like, the only thing he drinks now is blood.
Well, that's always been Moxley's kind of like, I'm tougher than I really am gimmick. So I'm not going to fault him for that. I've always liked the way that he delivers these, but I feel like with Moxley, if you've seen one Moxley promo, you've seen most Moxley promos.
Exactly. And while I do feel that it was a little bit heartfelt, me personally, this just felt like another Jon Moxley promo. It's not necessarily that I don't downplay what he's been through, but to me, it just feels like, and this is another Jon Moxley promo.
Well, you could have had an opportunity. You could have had an opportunity to do something more with that, given the situation, and make something that felt different and looked different instead of just doing cut and paste Jon Moxley. You know, he could have changed up how he delivered his style, and maybe that would have gotten over better. And instead, we got what we've always been getting.
And that's also an issue because think about this: Jon Moxley has returned, but things are different now because you have CM Punk. You have Bryan Danielson. You have Adam Page.
Right.
I mean, Adam Cole was going to be there, but we'll talk about Adam Cole in a minute.
Yes, we will.
But Jon Moxley has come back to AEW at a time when there's two very big over guys who are much bigger than he is. So now his return is back. What's he going to do?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they put him back with Kingston because Jericho is trying to go after Kingston. And
oh, great. Jon Moxley Jericho feud again.
I could see it happening. I could definitely see it happening, but I also think...
no.
Yeah.
And that would be something Jericho would do because he always latches on to the hot stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair to Moxley, when it comes to AEW's audience, they do really love Jon Moxley because of what he represented when he left. And I think that even though some of the shimmer might have come off of this, I think that at the same time, he's going to be loved by AEW's fans regardless. So I don't think he's necessarily in a bad position, even though two people have lapped him in position. Especially because it's all about what Tony Khan wants anyway, and he's just going to book whoever he wants to book.
That is true, although Jon Moxley being the biggest star that AEW has, that ship is a little bit sailed.
That I agree with. He will not be the top guy, but he'll be in the group of top guys just by proxy of he's one of the only 4 AEW champions in the 2.5-year history. And the fact that he's got so many people he's worked with and been around and who love him, and Moxley's got that kind of cultish following that he loves. And cultish followings is what brought him to the dance in the first place when he was first on the indie scene. So
yes, it is. And we will have that conversation in a little bit. But not everyone's as positive, because this promo was mostly received positively by the wrestling community because they did want to see Jon Moxley healthy.
Right.
And I want to be clear, I am glad that Jon is healthy. But
Same.
one person was a critic of the promo, famously Bully Ray. And have you heard this Bully Ray comments?
I have not.
Okay, let me go ahead and give it to you. We have 3 paragraphs. We'll break it down paragraph by paragraph.
Okay. Wait. He wrote 3 paragraphs about this?
Well, I'll be quick, okay?
No, I'm just surprised that Bully Ray put that much effort into critiquing something. Like I'm not even upset. I'm impressed.
Well, he did it on a podcast on Busted Open Radio. So
oh, got it. Okay. All right, I'm with you. Go ahead.
In writing form, this is 3 paragraphs. I mean, yes, I know Bully Ray committing 2 sentences together is especially rare fame for his pea-sized brain. But
well, I wasn't gonna say that. I just he's known to be very linguistic spoken, but not very much written. I wasn't knocking Bully Ray. I was just surprised it was that long. But go ahead. We're getting past the point here.
All right, let me go ahead and begin. I would have liked to have heard just a little bit of accountability from Jon. I understand the whole demons thing, and we always use the word demons as a creative word to get around the real issues, whether it's an alcohol issue, whether it's a drug issue. In Tommy Dreamer's case, it's an eating issue. Everybody has some kind of demon that they have to get around.
Oh, Bully. Too funny.
Right. Shall I go on to the next paragraph?
Please do.
We have our demons. These demons got the best of Jon for a time period where he had to step away from AEW. I would like to have heard him say a bit of an apology to the AEW fans. You don't have to apologize to the boys, even though the boys do count on you. But any one of those guys and gals could have had the same problems that you did. And trust me, I came up in an era where a slew of men and women had their demons. The fans expect a little bit more from you. What about the fans that bought tickets to see AEW and Jon Moxley while Jon was away taking care of problems? I'm very happy that he left and took care of his problem. And he looked incredibly healthy last night, and I love everything that he said. I just would have loved to hear a little bit of accountability. I don't know if "I'm sorry" is necessarily the right word, but maybe endear yourself a little bit to the crowd if you felt you let them down. This is coming from me, the hard ass of all hard asses. Personally, if it was me in the same situation, the first thing I would have said is, "Guys, I'm sorry if I let you down." I think that would have been the proper thing to do.
Well, I definitely understand where Bully Ray is coming from. I think it's a valid point. I think that, I'm not necessarily saying that Bully Ray was the one to make this kind of comment, but I don't necessarily disagree with the statement. Just considering that what I can only imagine Bully Ray saw all sorts of wrestlers competing in all sorts of shapes and forms, given ECW and then eventually WWE. So, I get where he's coming from and why he would say that. And yeah, I don't know. It's a fair criticism. I don't really have much more of a response than that.
I think Bully isn't even critical of John's promo. He just would have liked John to say he's sorry.
Right. Which is personal preference more than anything else, and that's almost saying I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, but it was still good, so it wasn't necessarily a knock on Moxley.
Right, it was just he could have taken a different avenue. But I think the criticism is the whole thing about apologizing.
Right.
The whole thing that people are having an issue with that I'm seeing online is that John Moxley doesn't have to apologize to anyone for anything that he did. Which...
Well... Normally I would agree, but you also have to remember how valued and regarded Moxley is in AEW. This is a top guy. And for a top guy to step away and be like, I need to take care of my, demons, which is totally, as Bully Ray said, commendable. And we both said it at the time. We mad respect for that. But at the same time, I don't think it would necessarily be apologizing to the fans that would be necessary. I think it'd be more apologizing to the boys. For me. Because I don't think that Moxley necessarily owes the fans anything, but he definitely owes the boys something for, one of the guys who's been trying to build and bring in revenue, even though, Tony Khan's pockets are bottomless. That's be doing a disservice to everyone who's working around you and working with you. And the more you do it, you're putting their lives in danger. You're not putting the fans' lives in danger by taking care of your demons. You know what I mean?
The interesting thing would have been if we know he had this alcohol issue because he told us this. What if he had the alcohol issue while wrestling? Because then you're putting the wrestler that you're wrestling against in danger.
Well, and I doubt that I've never seen Moxley, a match of John Moxley's that ever made me suspect that he was drunk doing it. Unless he's a goddamn selling wizard, which I can guarantee from his matches, he is not. and
right, and that's the thing, is that we don't know if he had this issue.
We don't.
It's something that we are not sure about. Now, the only thing we do know is that Renee Paquet, or Renee Young, was not particularly pleased with these comments. So,
and what was her response?
Well, first thing first, on Twitter, she did a thumbs down. And then one of her friends, Paige, said, "And this is why people always prefer Devon over you, Bully." Which...
What? What?
I think what she meant was that the boys in the back like Devon more than Bully Ray.
Oh, maybe okay, like in person. Okay.
Right.
Well, Devon was also a producer, and Bully Ray was not.
Devon's obviously the more laid-back guy. But
yeah, and Bully Ray, to his own admission, he even said it in the thing, is a hard ass, the hard ass of all hard asses. So he was being critical and even acknowledging, I'm being a hard ass, but that's the way I feel about it. So, at least he's aware that is his, that's his thing.
Well, let me go ahead and give you a full version of what Renee said.
Okay.
I'm not going to read the entire statement because this is long, but I'm going to be very quick to it, okay?
Let's do it.
"I hate even having to talk about this because it's stupid and it's annoying and I don't even want to pay any more attention. Honestly, the whole thing, this Bully Ray thing, I saw it over my Twitter and I was like, do I even want to address this? But it's that thing where people can talk shit about me all day and whatever, it's fine. You talk shit about my husband and my family, that becomes personal and it bothers me. It also bothers me because Bully is someone who I've always enjoyed. I've always really liked Bully. I always thought it was a good relationship with him, despite other people not having a good relationship with him, or him having burned bridges all over the place and leaving a bad taste in people's mouths. I've never had that situation with him, so now to be on the receiving end of it sucks. I've not talked to him since this has all gone down. He certainly has my phone number. He has my husband's phone number. He's out at Northeast Wrestling over the weekend. I know Bully was with Moxley at the show. There could not be a more bullshit trash take than that. Let me go ahead and stop here.
I don't feel like Renee made any points, though.
Well, it continues.
I was gonna say that's all seemed to be filler and just being like, that's just angry talk.
He took time to take care of himself, being there for us. The guy's already put his body through the ringer with the job that he does, with the style of wrestling he works. He loves wrestling. He loves this business. So for Bully to think he also needs to apologize to people on top of that, honestly, my first reaction to it was, I just thought it was some shock jock shit where he didn't actually think that. There's no way he actually believes that John needs to apologize for taking time off to better himself. Which, by the way, 3 months is also nothing. In the scope of what wrestling is and also in the scope of his life, 3 months is nothing. So for him to go and do the things he needed to do for himself, for our family, for our daughter, that's for us and not anybody else.
Don't necessarily disagree with that viewpoint either.
Let me go ahead and skip down a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Bully has not apologized for it. I don't need Bully to apologize for it. I assure you, John could give a shit. It's annoying to even be talking about it at this point. The fact that John is back in wrestling and he looks like $1 million and he feels good for all of us to see this massive change of him in fantastic. That's the takeaway.
Well, I'm glad that he is bettering himself. Honestly, I really am glad that John is, and I hope that it lasts. And I mean, are you really surprised that Renee obviously came out in defense of her husband at this point?
My only issue with what Renee said is that, honestly, Bully, what he said was not even that bad.
No, I thought he was pretty fair about it, and I thought he was being very, very calm in his approach. It wasn't like a Stephen A. Smith hot take that starts low and then gets really high and he starts screaming, and then at the end of it, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how Bully approached this. You know, he was just...
If Bully Ray had been cynical and said, you know what, he only came back after 3 months, I bet he didn't even really go to rehab. I bet he just did that as an excuse to take some time off so he could do some things.
Yeah, if he started saying, talking smack, that's one thing, but I thought it was just an honest criticism. And it was not meant to be malicious in any regard, I don't think. It was just Bully Ray's take on it. You know, I don't know. I'm not surprised that the mama bear goes to defend the papa bear here, but at the same time,
it feels kind of misguided, huh?
Feels like nobody really is coming out looking the greatest in this situation, so maybe Renee should have just left it alone.
Yeah.
I don't know. This feels like this shouldn't have been news. Not critiquing you bringing it up as news, but just for the fact of what has gone down between these two, I feel like this could have very easily been avoided.
True. Now we're gonna move on from AEW, but we'll be back here in a minute. We're gonna move to WWE and the Royal Rumble event that's happening this Saturday.
Yeah.
So
go home.
Before we talk about our topic, I just want to ask you: are you excited about the Royal Rumble?
Well, I was.
You were.
I was, because honestly, I don't know what they're gonna do with this Rumble. They've announced some very odd things. I think there's going to be some stupid stuff in it, a la Johnny Knoxville. But I think that they could still, just given how 2020's Rumble went and how 2021's honestly wasn't that bad either. They've been on a streak with the Rumble, and I do enjoy watching Rumbles, especially when they're live.
My favorite gimmick match.
Yeah, I do enjoy watching Rumbles. I wish we only did one. But that's my take on every gimmick match, so that's not even that hot of a take.
Not to mention that Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley is a dream match, and I'm looking forward to that one.
And I'm very much excited for that too. I think that really the men's Rumble can go to really any number of people in this situation. given the circumstances, and I don't know what they're gonna do with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, where
Yeah, that will also be another interesting one.
and that could, oh my god, and that could lead to a whole new winner being chosen, because why not? And everyone would hate it if the circumstances go the way that we suspect they're gonna go. At least the last time we talked about Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins in the news.
Yes. But the reason why I bring up the Rumble is that there are names that are being talked about, as there always are this year, about people that will return for the Rumble. And some of our favorite people will be returning to the Rumble. Let me start with the light one, Asuka.
Well, if she goes in there and destroys everybody and wins the Rumble in short order, I won't have a problem.
Goldberg. Please, for the love of God, fuck off.
I can't imagine they're going to have him win it.
Shane McMahon.
Weird flex, but okay.
Kurt Angle.
Boy, they really did not... Wait, is he confirmed in the Rumble?
He's in St. Louis, so he possibly could be in the Rumble.
Well, if he is, does that mean he's getting another match? Is he just going to be there to eliminate Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin?
After Happy Corbin retired
him. Is that all he's going to do? Because that's probably all he'd be in there for.
Yeah. But the biggest name, the baddest name, the rowdiest name, Ronda Rousey.
I found out about this morning. And I don't think there is any human being on this planet less excited about this than me. I have often said, and I'm sure anyone who wants to go back to the rant can go back to the rant about Ronda Rousey and why I think that she is the biggest tumor on the face of professional wrestling to this day, larger than the mole on her face, because it covers up the entirety of WWE. It's a blemish that they can't get rid of, no matter whether they ice it, go to a dermatologist. No, this woman has to just go ahead and be the bane of existence to anything good that WWE or any professional wrestlers have stood for by just disrespecting it, being treated as a top entity in the business and disrespecting everyone who's ever been in it by the interviews that she has and the things that she says and the way that she treats and views the business. It spits in my face. It spits in Skylar's face. It spits in all of your faces. All of you here who are listening to us talk about her, she's spitting in your face. Because you care about this business enough to listen to two smarks talk about it. And if you care enough for the two smarks can talk about that business, then you care enough about that business. And she doesn't give a crap about this business. Brock Lesnar, who a lot of people have made comparisons to, cares at the end of the day about this business. Because he will work and he will sell and he will be pinned on a regular basis, even though he gets billions of dollars for it and he shows up when he wants and leaves when he wants. He at least respects and reveres the business for what it is. Ronda Rousey does not. Ronda Rousey is the most disrespectful name to have ever earned money in this business, and anyone who has ever come before this woman should feel disrespected because of what this woman has done, but because she had 2 UFC fights that made her popular and then one that made her cry, all of a sudden we have to treat her like she's a god. And I'm not in for it. I will never be in for it. And I promise you, to the end of my life, no matter when that is, I will eventually have the same deal with Ronda Rousey that Jim Cornette has with Vince Russo. Because this is where it's getting to me with this point. I don't get angry in the professional wrestling business about a lot. Not actually angry. I'll get frustrated with Vince McMahon and his garbage, and I'll get frustrated with Tony Khan and his garbage, but no one makes me angry quite like Ronda Rousey. Seeing her face, watching her moves, the weird wingtip makeup that she's got, that they always make her seem like a badass. The fact she was pushed long before she was ready, even though she had one good match where 3 out of the 4 people were better than her, and one of those was Stephanie McMahon. When you get this person this disrespectful, saying, I need to learn how to fake it more because it's not real, and all the marks are going to get angry because I'm overtly disrespecting what I'm making money doing. That's where I take so much issue with this person that not even people in the business will be as angry as I am about this, because I still have the passion for this, damn it. I've put too much of my life into this business, whether it's been as a fan, whether it's been taking bumps I shouldn't have been taking by myself because I wanted to run a fantasy wrestling league and still jump around as a kid. I've done too much, including starting this podcast, to have this person, who I am really holding restraint of calling her names. I am holding back as much as I can when I describe this woman, and Skylar can testify to this based on our group chat. I just want to be clear that if Ronda Rousey left the public eye and was never seen again, it would be too soon, because the more that I see her around, the more I'm going to work to make sure that I will outlast her. For the exact reason Jim Cornette will with Vince Russo. That's how much hatred I've got for this woman and what she's done to my professional wrestling.
Well spoken, my man. Well spoken. I don't have much to add to this. I will save my thoughts for when we review the Royal Rumble and when she inevitably wins and defeats Becky Lynch for the women's title at WrestleMania. But maybe we need a little bit of something to calm us down after that. Maybe you just need to sit back and listen to some good music. Am I right, my man?
Well, it just so happens that you are absolutely correct, because every time that this woman gets into my view or watches my television, the first thing I think is I want to shut that off and listen to some quality music to relax me, to energize me in a different way, to bring that positivity. And there's only one place you can find it, because a new era in entertainment has arrived. That's right, folks. AB Production CT is proud to drag you out of the superficial monotony and overproduced, oversimplified modern musical mud pit with two industry-busting artists slowly taking the world by storm. And I guarantee you that before every song, they're not going to be, yeah, okay, you guys ready? Abizzle and Knux deliver an avant-garde approach to music that blends elements and instruments of a wide number of musical styles, including hip-hop, R&B, jazz, funk, house, EDM, and so much more. It is high time for the musical industry to be shaken to its core, so be part of the foundation-breaking movement by supporting aspiring artists. And right now, you can catch the latest release, the WAXAPOCALYPSE, a 32-track album that took over 2 years to come together throughout the whole pandemic. The saga of a lifetime awaits your eager ears. You gotta look for Abizzle, spelled A-B-I-Z-Z-L-E, or White Knux, spelled W-H-I-T-E space K-N-U-X, on SoundCloud, Apple Music, and Spotify for this and the entire AB Productions CT discography of over 100 songs and projects, including Retreat, Mixed Bag, Verses from a College Grad, Bear Min, Recovering, and so much more. And it's all just a short click away. Link in the description. Come join the entertainment revolution with AB Productions CT and get those foul scumbag UFC ridden bitches out your life.
Support small artists. Support small business. Support AB and White Knux.
Thank you, my man. And it's a good time, and you will not be disappointed.
Alrighty. Now we're going to go to a man who has some good entrance music, although maybe he needs a little bit of AB and White Knux in his life.
Yeah, that'd
Jeff
be nice.
Hardy.
Oh, that would be an honor to make a Jeff Hardy entrance theme for him. Although he spent so much time getting no more words only to use it like 6 times.
I know. It's so disappointing.
What a shame.
So that's the thing, is that we're going to talk about Jeff Hardy because some interesting news has come out that's going to make you laugh.
Oh, I'm interested.
So apparently, as you all know, Jeff Hardy had that incident at the house show where it looked like he may have been on something, but he denies that he was. He asked for his release and WWE gave it to him or something. I don't know. And then
it was a whole to-do.
Basically, WWE asked him to do rehab. He said no, and WWE said, fine, we're going to let you go. Jeff and Matt have been promising to tell Jeff's story when time comes. Now listen to this. Apparently, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, a month after that Jeff Hardy was let go, John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, the man with people power.
Oh, we haven't heard a Skylar Greenberg John Laurinaitis promo in a minute.
Yeah, so I called Jeff Hardy, and I had to give him an offer to come back to WWE and have a spot in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, really? After that, we'll release you because you won't go to rehab. Want to go into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that's the thing. WWE released him, and they wanted him back, and they enticed him by giving him a spot in the Hall of Fame.
Wow,
You want to know
that's
what
great.
apparently Jeff Hardy had said?
Yeah, no.
He said, "Give me the drug test results first."
Oh,
Because apparently the WWE does drug testing with an independent company, and apparently he did not get that drug test result from WWE because apparently he may or may not have been clean.
oh.
Now, again, this is me speculating, okay? I don't know for sure whether or not he's clean, but Jeff Hardy, from my understanding from sources, feels that perhaps WWE fired him without cause.
Well, if that's the case, I mean, I think if Jeff had actually if it had tested positive, don't you think Jeff would have just tried to let that go? If Jeff was,
Because then WWE would have been in the right.
right, because so that almost seems like maybe he was clean, and maybe Jeff really did have some sort of medical issue, and now he's like, no, give me the drug test, and I'll prove that I was clean. But now WWE is like, oh no, we don't have it. We don't know where it is. We have big file cabinet. We lost it. But you want to be in Hall of Fame?
Right, exactly. That's the full thing, is that we don't know anything for certain about this because it's all hush-hush whisper. But Jeff Hardy rejected the Hall of Fame. We know that for sure. And he wanted that drug test result because he knew he was clean, and WWE has not given it to him. This is not going to end soon. At least I don't think it will.
No, this is going to be really interesting how this all boils down. And it's just a shame because, like, why are you alienating the Hardys? After everything that they have given you over the years, why are you doing this to them, man?
Well, that's the thing, is that I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think it's worth bearing. Nick Khan has been talking about WWE in a recent interview he did. I don't remember what he did it for, but Nick Khan, in talking about this interview, says that everything still goes through Vince McMahon, but apparently Vince has decided that he doesn't want to be viewed as a mom and pop company. He wants to be reviewed as a businessman. He wants to be accepted in the business circles. And that's why he hired Nick Khan to transform WWE into a business that would be respected amongst the Power 500 companies.
Oh.
So here's the thing. We've made that joke before that Vince McMahon wants to be known for everything but being a professional wrestling promoter, right?
Well, that's pretty much just outliningly, just overtly just stating it. That's basically saying, yeah, we're not a wrestling company, never will be, and how you like that? And the fact that Vince got that bad of a little dick syndrome about top businesses, even though he is a billionaire, the fact that he's that insecure about it is really actually kind of funny when you think about it. The fact that Nick Khan was brought in because Vince feels like a very tiny-dicked businessman, even though he ran a monopoly for the wrestling industry for like 20 years.
I know, it's just like, you already have the top of professional wrestling. You already make billions of dollars with your streaming deals and your licensing and the different documentaries and different intellectual properties you have sold. Like, what else do you need?
A hug. He needs a hug.
If
Tell
only
him
he
to
had
stop.
gotten that hug from Vince Sr. that he never got.
It's time to
maybe
stop.
He would, I don't know.
Ugh.
By the way, Nick Khan does say that the company is still not for sale, and it's never going to be for sale.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I totally believe you, Nick Khan. Mr. We want to go to 4 hours of Nick Khan. Yeah, okay.
Mr. The Rock friend.
Yep. Okay, we'll see.
Well, now we're going to go to AEW, back to AEW, because we have an interesting conversation, and this will be the last piece of news. And it is that they have released a couple of people. Let me give you these people, and you tell me what you think of them.
Let's do it.
By the way, we're not playing an AEW releases theme song because it's never going to be as catchy as the WWE releases theme song.
Nor do I think that they're going to be just taking the sickle out and chopping heads the way that WWE was for the entirety of 2020, 2021, and the beginning of 2022.
Actually, you're right. These are contract expirations. They're not releases.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
So, Lio Rush.
Thanks for coming, Lio Rush. We hardly knew ye.
Leo, can you stay employed for a little bit?
Why?
Like, come on. He said to Tony Khan, apologize over the Big Swole thing, and then the day after, I've had a conversation with Tony Khan, and I've changed my opinion.
Yeah, which was Tony Khan saying, you ever say that kind of shit like me again, I'm going to let your contract expire and then release you, and then he did.
No, I think it was like, listen here, you shut the fuck up because you're a small little guy who's never going to be a star. I'm going to pay you out for the rest of your contract, but you're not coming back, you idiot.
Yeah. And, well, Lio
Anyway.
Rush is cut from the same, is drinking that same Austin Aries Kool-Aid. You know?
I know.
They're cut
And
from the
the
same
funny-
cloth. They're like the same person.
Exactly. Peter Avalon.
I didn't hate him until I realized just how tiny that dude was. When he was wearing the robe, you couldn't tell, but then he started working with actual people, and you're like, whoa, okay, yeah, no, we're
Jobber.
good.
Jobber.
Yeah.
Joey Janela.
Oh, thank God.
Marco Stunt.
Again, at least finally, this is just fat trimming. In Joey Janela's case, literally.
It's the exact same thing. Like, who's the more valuable? Well, who's the bigger? Well, who cares?
Right. But this is just letting contracts expire. This isn't just being like, all right, I'm kicking you to the curb.
Which is what Tony Khan should be doing because at this point,
Yeah,
And then
their
the
roster's
biggest-
getting pretty loaded.
Yep. And then the biggest guy, Brian Cage.
Well,
By the way, the funny part is that his wife bitched about his push. And that he wasn't getting a push after the Team Taz thing ended.
who do you put him up against? When you've got... They had Brian Cage and then found Powerhouse Hobbs, and then there was no need for Brian Cage.
The other thing I would argue is that Brian Cage has been in wrestling for a while now, right?
Yeah, oh no. It's time to shrink back down, Brian.
Like, Brian, you're not that good. You never were that good. And you're never going to be that good.
He had his moments, though. He had his moments in Lucha Underground, because, again, it's all about presentation, but then they just didn't know how to present him, and, then he lost to Tessa Blanchard.
No. They knew how to present him. He never got any better.
Well, I will admit that his wrestling did regress in AEW because he didn't have the right influences next to him to help him improve. I think that was a big part of the problem, is that he didn't have the guys to help him along the way in these last 2 years to make himself a commodity. And then you get Powerhouse Hobbs, and then you get and you got Wardlow, who is improving. And then he's just kind of superfluous.
He's just another guy.
Yeah. And I like Brian Cage. I liked him a lot. I made him my first ACPW heavyweight champion, but even I released him this January.
AEW taking a hint. Great minds think alike.
That's
Get rid
right.
of this
You're
guy.
welcome, Tony Khan. You've begun the stealing early.
But here's the thing, is that all these releases, right? And these are guys who are ancillary. They're not very good. They're not even real professional wrestlers. So we're all thinking to ourselves, maybe Tony Khan is learning from this. Maybe he's changing his philosophies about who he hires and who he doesn't. And then he goes and hires Danhausen, some independent guy who looks really thin, to not even interfere, but just be a comedy spot in that Adam Cole Orange Cassidy match that just happened on the 26th.
Well, an Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy match with the Adam Cole we've gotten in AEW is an instant shutoff for me, just by Orange Cassidy standards of what we were going to get in that match, and the fact that Adam Cole was going to indulge him. And then Danhausen, to the fact where Danhausen looks actually like right with these two clowns. You know, and unfortunately, I mean, Danhausen is a fad. Danhausen is a fad wrestler. I don't necessarily hate his gimmick. I don't necessarily, because I've heard it, and he does make some very funny promos when it goes down, and there's been moments at Comic-Cons and stuff with MJF that I've really enjoyed. He's over with the boys, and so he's coming to AEW, which is the only major company that would hire a guy like Danhausen, but give him a chance. I haven't seen him wrestle, so I could be totally off base once I see him wrestle. But I'm willing to give Danhausen a chance.
A friend of mine put it to me best. It's like AEW is SNL, and they're just changing comedians. Oh, Marco Stunt's not funny anymore? Let's bring in Danhausen.
I would have more faith in Danhausen than Marco Stunt, though. Marco Stunt is literally just like a mole on your head that you can get just like trimmed off.
But it's just recycling jokes.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's...
Also, by the way, this was a non-sanctioned lights out match that Adam Cole lost to Orange Cassidy, but because it's an unsanctioned match, it does not go to official records. And Adam Cole, by the way, is the number one ranked wrestler in AEW.
Yeah, but Orange Cassidy is the number one ranked clown in AEW. And people still like the clowns, so they had to go. And if Tony Khan is going to choose between clown and serious, at least half the time he's going for clown.
I don't know, but here's the overall thing, and let's go ahead and transition into our discussion of the week. All of this feels like independent wrestling in a nutshell. A little bit of everything, but that everything is really unpredictable.
Well, and that was AEW's roots. I mean, they weren't even apologetic about that. Really, they were like, hey, we're pretty much just an indie company on steroids. And we got a whole bunch of indie people doing indie matches. And you can tell an indie match because it's mostly moves. There's not a lot of actual psychology. And I'm sorry, folks, but just countering moves is not psychology.
That is true. Well, let's go ahead and go back a little bit because we need to set this up before we properly talk about this.
Sure.
Now, in professional wrestling, most wrestlers, for the dawn of time, have been classified as independent contractors.
Right.
And back in the territory days, except for maybe 2 or 3 of the top guys or top tag teams, and even then, they were, movable. But except for the very few top guys like Jerry Lawler in Memphis,
right,
or Dusty Rhodes in the Carolinas, most guys would work a wrestling territory or an area for maybe like a year or two, and then they would move on to the next territory and to the next territory.
It may not even last that long. We could be only 6 months. 3 months if you got in trouble with the law and had to get out of there in a hurry.
Exactly. It's just this is. It ultimately is a part of WWE, not WWE, but professional wrestling in general, and that companies, they would always have wrestlers who would be there a little bit, and then they go on to the next place because that's what you did.
Oh, yeah. The constant journeyman. And also, it helped you improve as a wrestler because then your styles improved because every crowd, the flavor of every crowd was just a little bit different, so you had to work a little bit different style to cater to those crowds.
Right. Now, in the turn of the century, WWE started destroying the territories, as well as WCW, and then eventually, after the war ended in the early 2000s, WWE was the sole wrestling company. And most people were watching WWE. Granted, that has declined over the years.
Considerably.
But the thing about it was that it was WWE, and the pieces were left over for other companies that were in WWE's shadow to do these shows. And we're talking small-time promotions or regional areas that kind of resemble the territories. But here's the thing, is that during this time, we've had companies like TNA, Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Chikara, all these different companies with different gimmicks and
CZW.
CZW, Evolve, so on and so forth. And all these companies, they all had different styles of wrestling. And really, around the mid-2000s to the early teens, the phenomenon of independent wrestling really started to take off.
Well, and also at that time, a lot of the independent wrestlers, so to speak, because there's always been an independent circuit, whether it was called, as Jim Cornette very affectionately puts it, the outlaw shows. You know, those have been around forever. Independent wrestling has been around forever. But the way that we modernly perceive independent wrestling, when WWE had really taken most, if not all, of the televised wrestling in the States and really almost all over the world, by necessity, a lot of these companies had to emerge from the ashes or really start to develop more ways to get themselves airtime. You know, and that's when the internet, you know, and that's what became modern independence, was really the perfect collision of the internet and professional wrestling. And it's the one part of the internet that I think helped professional wrestling, was getting independent shows more off the ground and on more people's eyes.
Right, because that meant that more people around the world or around the United States could watch these companies.
Yep.
In a way that had not existed before.
Right.
But the thing about the wrestling territories back in the early 2000s, before independent wrestling took off, is that they had like a self-filtering system. They would work guys and these promoters who knew what they were looking for. They were looking for the best talents. They were looking for real, believable guys. And they would shift out the bad talents and say, "You're never going to work. Get out of here. Find a new career."
Oh, yeah. And I mean, there was, just in general, there was a lot more balls on promoters than there is now.
Well, the problem is that there are not as many big-time promoters, because after WWE and Vince McMahon basically destroyed the territories, a lot of those promoters either retired or just moved on to other things. So nowadays, with the promoters, they don't have the stones to tell the wrestlers to not do the things that they do.
Yeah, oh, for the days that we yearned for a Cowboy Bill Watts or Vern Gagne, although Greg Gagne did plenty of bitching about his territory in the years after his territory went down, and that's what occupied most of his time. But in any case, it was different. It was a different breed of people, and there's really, you know, there's only one guy that I really think, as far as independents that I know and promoters, who has been fairly discriminatory in who he's brought in, and that has been Mike Lombardi, who started Northeast Wrestling. You mentioned it before with Bully Ray, but he's actually been up here. This is a local, it's like our local New York and kind of along the Atlantic coast wrestling program. They do a lot of shows in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, as I mentioned, like the lower, like Westchester County, Poughkeepsie area. They go to Ohio, they go to Virginia sometimes. And so they have this whole thing going on, and he's been very selective. And if you notice, a lot of people who leave WWE and a lot of these places, their first stop is Northeast Wrestling, because he's probably the one who's got the line the most. But as you know, as well as I do, Sky, not everyone has had that kind of traditional approach, or at least that kind of respectful approach when it came to pro wrestling. Take a look at the Tournament of Death if you want to know what I'm talking about.
Right. And there are very, very few of the Mike Lombardis or the Jim Cornettes, when he was running Ring of Honor, that are very strict in the talents that they bring in.
Right.
Nowadays, it's promoters who just bring in guys. Hey, are you doing something? Cool, I'll bring you in. Hey, what's your pay? Okay, I'll do this. You want to do that? Sure, fine, whatever. Just pop the crowd a little bit.
Yeah. And also, I think
Now,
just the fact that a lot of the promoters nowadays, which is also worth noting, back in the days, if you were a promoter, you at the very least wrestled. If not, you had some other in the professional wrestling business to be taught and broken in on how to do these things. Where a lot of promoters emerging out of the 2000s and into the 2010s, most of those were fans. Which is definitely something that needs acknowledging, that a lot of these promoters were fans, so they didn't quite know how to say no to these people because they didn't know what was going to get over.
it's basically the Tony Khan effect of, it's amazing that I now own a professional wrestling company because I used to watch professional wrestling when I was a kid. Or it was promoters like Dixie Carter who just want to be on TV and they don't care who they listen to. They'll listen to the bad influences just so that they can get the TV time.
Right.
Or they'll listen to people who they shouldn't listen to. I love Herb Abrams.
Oh, Herb Abrams. that we got to do a little dive into the UWF at some point, because I think we would enjoy, not only just from what we saw from the dark side of the ring, but I think if we also did a little bit more of a dive into that, we would have some fun uncovering some facts.
I don't think we could do Herb Abrams the justice that Dark Side of the Ring did.
Oh no, we definitely couldn't, but we'd still. I think if we did that as a match of the week or something, we could definitely have some fun with it. But for another day.
Right. The one interesting thing about independent wrestling, though, and this is the thing that's really interesting, is that the divide of talent is very wide. The one thing I'll give independent wrestling is that it's a very diverse wrestling set. There's a lot of different styles in it. But
Absolutely.
the divide of quality of wrestlers is very massive.
Oh, yeah, and there is a discrepancy between who knows what and who can do what, and who has potential and who doesn't. And unfortunately, those lines have very much been blurred because of the way that independent wrestling has taken off and what people have responded to as a result. Because I think fans have also been a lot more forgiving of people based on their size and stature or their goodness or not, or dislike, just by the fact that they're watching a show that isn't WWE, because WWE hatred did fuel a lot of these fandoms for these kinds of independent wrestlers that who otherwise would not have seen the light of day.
There's a definite set of a us against them mentality, them being WWE, and people defending their independent wrestlers by saying, look at him, he does a flip, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If he was in WWE, he wouldn't. That's why WWE sucks and I love this guy or something.
Because realistically, that is exactly why the Young Bucks are where they are. Because the Young Bucks do not get over if the fans are like, these are the exact opposite of WWE, because they're doing everything known to man and won't stop until everybody is exhausted. So let's love them and worship them because they're not WWE. Young Bucks don't get over without the hatred of WWE being so prevalent in the 2010s.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. We're in 2022, right?
I hope
Where do you
so.
see independent wrestling going?
Really,
The thing about it now, though, is that WWE, they used to be taking independent wrestlers. Now, because of Nick Khan's meddling and NXT's failures, they're not going to do that anymore because they're going to build in-house. And AEW is pretty much cornered the market on a lot of the independent talent.
Well, the thing about the independent scene is that it will keep chugging along regardless of who's around. Because as we've mentioned, independent wrestling has been around for forever. And so long as there are local towns, there's going to be independent professional wrestling. But I will say, a lot of pro wrestling that we've known and a lot of these independent companies that we've known have taken a significant hit because of the pandemic. So I think what we'll end up seeing in a lot of ways is, at least I hope, the rebirth of independent wrestling that takes things seriously. Have you seen, Sky, Jonathan Gresham, the interim Ring of Honor World Champion, is starting a new wrestling promotion called Terminus. And
I've not heard about this.
Yes, yeah, I suggest you look it up and we'll talk about it another day. But basically, they listed out the rules of how the matches were going as far as how matches are structured, what's a disqualification, what's not disqualification, how do you win the matches, more of a statement, kind of like the way I did with ACPW about, even though this is our rule set, this is how we're going to conduct our matches, this is the way we're doing things, more as a statement of, we're going to be adhering to rules. We're not doing what they're doing because we're doing wrestling. And I suggest, take a look at this, and I'll definitely post it up because it is really a fascinating thing, because I think that more and more we're going to start to see people try to do this right again. And it's going to start with independent wrestling because AEW is now picking up all the goofs, and that's going to breed some resentment. And people are going to want to start doing this right again. At least I hope.
I think you're being optimistic, and I
am being optimistic. I will agree.
But the thing about Terminus is that in and of itself, the idea of a serious wrestling company is a gimmick, which
it's kind of sad.
It's kind of sad that it's come to that point.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. have you? I've told you a bunch about Game Changing Wrestling and that show they had at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York.
Yeah.
If you watch that show, it is independent wrestling in a nutshell. It's table spots, it's people throwing beers, it's really veiled shots at WWE. Hey, we have a guy with a fake Vince McMahon mask.
How clever.
Hey, we have shitty production values because we guys who had no idea how to do production. Well, here comes X-Pac to the old DX theme from Run DMC. And then we have matches that we have to hurry because we went over our time limits.
Yep, that sounds about right. And also, Game Changer Wrestling, just so everybody knows, and I still don't understand how Tony Khan allowed this, Game Changer Wrestling got Jon Moxley's first match out of rehab.
Because Tony Khan is like, ooh, I can have an opportunity to promote Jon Moxley on an independent show. Let's do that.
Instead of on his show, where his show might get more viewership because of it.
But I want to be faithful to the independent wrestling companies because maybe I'll get talent from them.
Oh, man. Well, it's going to be interesting. I think in the next 5 years, it'll be interesting to see what AEW's relationship with the independents turns into. Because Tony Khan might find himself in more of a pickle with that relationship than he suspects at this moment. And it's led to some very confusing television for us, those of us who are watching independents, or at least following independents, such as Impact, which you have to admit is an independent at this point.
Wait, hold on. Game Changing Wrestling, oh my god, they've actually been around for a while, but listen to this bullshit, okay?
Okay.
They have annual events including Backyard Wrestling, Blood Sports, Joey Janela's Spring Break, the Tournament of Survival, and the Nick Gage Invitational.
That sounds all like thrilling television.
Since when the hell did Nick Gage get a tournament named after him?
Probably right after the Dark Side of the Ring episode, where they glorified everything that he's ever done in the fans' eyes. Hey, those 64 people have got to leave happy, Sky. I can feel the hatred. We might have lost Sky. Are you here? Hello.
Am I here?
You are here now. I assumed you would just shut your mic off in rage and resentment for the fact that Nick Gage has an invitational.
No, actually, here's the thing: that Nick Gage cut me open with a pizza cutter.
Oh no!
I had to go to the hospital, but I'm back now.
Oh God! Right in the mouth too, so he couldn't speak.
It's okay. He just bladed me across my forehead, but I'll live.
Okay. All right. Well, that's not the worst.
We're not gonna have a mass transit incident over here.
Oh well, let's hope not.
But let's get away from this garbage independent wrestling.
Yeah, we can't have a mass transit incident on the 1 week I give you the rain, Sky. That's concerning.
Instead, let's go to some independent wrestling that actually was made big time by WWE in our match of the week. Kick that intro.
What time is it? It's the fight, it's the brawl, it's the match of the week. It's tonight, watch along with the son of a beat. It's one fall, then down for the 1, 2, and 3. So don't stall, hang on to the edge of your seat. We got a punch and a flip and a powerbomb too. All the moves and the stars are all under review. See the babyface cheer, then the heels get heat. This is wrestling at its peak. It's the match of the week.
That is right, folks. It is the match of the week featuring NXT, the company that used to be Triple H's baby until it was sodomized. Sean McCarty. It is TakeOver Portland, the last NXT TakeOver show that was outside of Florida and in front of people before the pandemic.
Yes, and no one likes to lick those pandems.
I know. So in our main event, it is Tommaso Ciampa challenging Adam Cole for the NXT Men's Championship. And I can't wait to say this. Sean McCarty, what did you think?
Well, it happened. That's about as much as I can say about this match. This was boy, what did you think?
Well, here's the thing: is that I think this was a really good professional wrestling match between Adam Cole and Tommaso Ciampa. There was the babyface, there was the heel, there was solid wrestling grappling, there was great spots, and then they did a table spot, and then they started to go too long. And then they did too many spots and just other things. And I mean, here's the thing: I think the first half of this match was really, really good. Tommaso Ciampa and Adam Cole were doing great stuff. And then after the table spot, I kind of started getting tired.
Which table spot?
The first one with the announce table that refused to break, so Tommaso Ciampa had to do it a second time.
Oh, that wasn't the first table spot, though. The first table spot was the slingshot with the throat that Tommaso Ciampa did.
Okay, sorry. Let me be more specific. When they broke the announce table.
Yeah. Because it was the main event of a WWE show. Because they had to break the announce table. Because you can't have a show without one. Yeah.
I know.
Here's the thing, right? The first time I wrote anything down on this, the first 10 minutes were fine. You know, it was slow, but they got it working. They grabbed the crowd. You know, it was technical wrestling. Ciampa gave this dude some bald guy loving.
Oh, that was funny.
And that dude made his life. That must have made that dude, and maybe Tommaso Ciampa's life, because obviously bald men have to stick together. I'll know shortly. But that was good.
Hold on. That was. Let's go more specific, because that 10 minutes we have to talk about the first 10 minutes. So they do a collar and elbow tie up.
Well, I don't expect anything less from Ciampa and NXT Cole.
Well, we have to talk about it because
But it's true. It's never a given. It is never a given in modern day professional wrestling. You're absolutely right.
And like you said, the first 5 minutes or so of this match, they did a lot of mat wrestling.
Which was fine. I think considering this was the match to close the show, I think they knew they needed some time not to go too fast because they wouldn't get the reactions because it had been a long night already.
True. And then they keep around 7 minutes or so, they go outside and they start doing stuff outside. And what would happen is that Cole would do some cool moves, but then Ciampa would just get on top of Cole and would just continuously kick Cole and using the outside environment. And every time Tommaso Ciampa would throw Cole into the ring, Cole would roll out because that's a heel thing.
Yep.
Which only made Ciampa more mad, so Ciampa would continuously do these moves.
I just thought it ended up being too much time on the outside. I know that they broke up the count, which they did a great job with, making sure that the count was always broken because these two were professionals, and they got their head in on that. But it was a lot of outside stuff.
Right, they could have trimmed it down a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, trimming this down, I would have cut this match in half. I know it's a main event of a takeover. But this match, like you said, Sky, I mean, I loved the Panama Sunrise and the counter with the kick. That was great. I loved with Ciampa doing that. But I found myself, as this match went on, feeling like as well-paced as it was a little bit too fast as far as going from move to move, where it almost didn't feel like counters. It just felt like sequences.
True. There was a little bit of a sequence stuff there. Although, I think, here's the thing. That first table spot that they did, where Adam Cole put Ciampa's neck basically into the edge of the table, that was brutal.
I loved that as a heat spot. Given, Ciampa's injuries and all that stuff, I thought that was great.
And it was sold by commentary, Mauro Ranallo, Beth Phoenix, and who's this English guy? I can't remember.
Nigel McGuinness.
Nigel.
Yes, but I will have to say, while we're talking about the commentary team, Mauro Ranallo, as much as Mauro Ranallo was such a breath of fresh air for the commentary team, he redlines every minute of the match. He's always at octane 10 when he needs to be fluctuating octanes based on the situation. I thought that his energy level was way too high all the time. And Beth couldn't really react to it in the same level of energy, so it made Beth sound worse because of that.
Definitely. I think like Beth Phoenix, she started reserved and then she got her energy up. Same thing with Nigel. Mauro was at an 11 the entire match, which It's a valid criticism of Ronaldo, but at least he was doing stuff. He was not being monotone cold.
Oh no, like I said, that I love Morrow. I'm not knocking Morrow in the slightest. I would take Mauro Ranallo back in a heartbeat. It's just an honest critique, but that's just my opinion. And I love Morrow, and if he did the exact same thing the exact same way and replaced Michael Cole, I would not have a problem with that at all.
Right. So after that slingshot spot with the table, Adam Cole gets Tommaso Ciampa back in the ring and starts building up heat, specifically on Tommaso Ciampa's neck.
Yep.
And building that vein in Tommaso's head, which is gross.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely prevalent. And it's in every one of his matches too. But you can't blame the guy. He's just a bald guy. He's got a veiny head. What can you do? But
it's the same thing with Cesaro. It's like every time that vein.
Exactly. And where this match ended for me, as far as my interest was the air raid siren on the top. Because that should have been
on the top rope.
That's a finish. That's not a kick out at 2 and then do a jillion more things. That's a finish. And the second that wasn't the finish, I knew that everything that was going on after that was going to look lesser than, and they even did an air raid crash on the apron, which is the hardest part of the ring, and they did all of the stuff.
They didn't say that part, so you can't make fun of them for it.
No, they didn't say it, but of course it's ingrained in all of our brains now. I'm sure you thought it. To be honest, you thought it.
Yes.
It's just, I don't know. This just became a guy. And then the power bombs. And like you said, that's where it ended up with you. And then it was just, it's just a spot fest with a little more selling. And it
did feel like they were kind of reaching into the independent wrestling thing where they're just going move for move for a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how pretty much the whole second half of the match was. And then almost half an hour in, they finally decide to do the angle that they could have done in half the time without half of the moves when the Undisputed Era come in and
even then, the Undisputed Era stuff, there was a little bit of a timing miscue because Tommaso Ciampa throws Cole into the ring, and it's a good 10 seconds until Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish get in there.
Yeah, and it took a second, and even the crowd who was gassed, they tried to keep this in, but as this started to reach into the half an hour mark, people were losing interest. Even with the Undisputed Era coming in. And then the Johnny heel turn didn't even register because of how long this match was.
Well, that's the thing. Hold on. Before we get there, Undisputed Era probably should have come in after the table spot or after the crash air raid siren. That probably would have been a better place for it.
Yeah.
Because people still would have had energy and they would have reacted more to Roddy Strong distracting the referee so Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish could do total elimination.
Right. And then, of course, the belt, getting the belt for Cole and the counters there, and then Johnny.
Which I don't know how to feel about this Johnny thing because at the time, Tommaso was a babyface. And he's not a nice guy, but he is a likable guy. But the thing about it is that he's a different cloth of babyface.
Right. And the thing about this too is like at the time we were more invested in this because I think that we didn't really have much of a choice because that was what we needed at the time. And in a lot of ways, AEW has filled the shoes where NXT was, not in all aspects, but you look at the way that this went down, and I don't feel that Johnny is anywhere near as big a deal at this point.
Johnny was a big deal at the time, but it was just one of those things where when he did the belt shot to Tommaso's head, it felt like, of course they're gonna do this.
Yeah, it just didn't connect.
Chinch.
Yeah.
Like NXT was starting to fall victim to certain booking isms, which you can tell they're Triple H isms. As much as we love Triple H and we're going to praise him, NXT at this point was starting to fall into Triple H isms.
Yeah, I won't lie. That's WWE format. It's going to, at the end of the day, formulaic. And this felt like a Formula NXT Championship match. And it just went too long. And that's, I think, the big poster mark of Triple H is length. Long matches. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I just didn't think it did here. I thought that this just went far too long. You want to see people do it right? Watch Danielson and Hangman Page.
Well, again, I don't think it's a condemnation of Adam Cole or Tommaso Ciampa.
No,
I think it's just more like they should have just paced it better and not do as many big moves. Because I feel like had they saved some of the bigger moves and done a little bit more heat work, a little bit more grappling, you could have gotten through this.
Yeah. But instead, it became an independent match, which is all moves, all filling, and no cake.
20-minute match probably would have been better. 30-minute match, too much.
Way too much. But
still, it was a good match. It was just, it is what it is. But it's from a bygone era, and Tommaso Ciampa, he's doing his thing on NXT 2.0. Ooh.
God bless him. Hope
God
he
bless him.
God. And what's the alternative? The main roster?
There are actually talks about him coming up to the main roster because they feel like his time is done in NXT. And I'm actually curious about what Tommaso Ciampa could do on the main roster.
Well, get ready for... I can't even come up with something bad enough. They're going to whatever gimmick name I come up with or idea, they're going to outdo it. Because that's what they do.
They're going to take away his last name and just call him Tommaso. Or just call him Champa.
They'll probably just call him Champa. That I would almost put money on the fact that he will lose one of those two names. I will say, we heard it here first, folks. That the chances that Tommaso Ciampa's name remains untouched come the main roster are slim to none. I give it 6 weeks of him being on the main roster before they make the change.
Well, we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, there's another man in this match who was the NXT champion and really was one of the big faces of NXT during its heyday, but now currently wrestles for AEW. He is Adam Cole, baby.
This man has had quite an interesting career and might be the best poster child for independent wrestling and how successful it can be under the right guidance.
It definitely does feel like a situation where presentation matters, and the right person that can present him will be able to make money. But if you don't present him correctly, you're gonna get shit.
You're gonna get what we currently have.
So, Adam Cole worked a lot of places between 2008 and 2017, the first few years of his wrestling career. The big names, though, are Combat Zone Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Now, here's my question for you. Where did you see Adam Cole first?
I was first introduced to Adam Cole from Ring of Honor, but it was post-2012 Ring of Honor. So it was kind of more when he was doing when AJ Styles was in Ring of Honor, right after he left TNA. Like, that's the time that I really started to get familiarized with Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish and that whole group. But that's where I really started to notice the potential in the way he cuts promos and his personality.
Now, when you were watching Adam Cole in Ring of Honor, so it was like 2013, 2014 era, right?
Thereabouts, yep.
What did you see from him?
It was mostly the promos, I think. He's a really tiny dude. But he was a little guy with big personality. And you could tell that, and he always surrounded himself with bigger guys or guys that made up for his potential inadequacies as far as his physical stature. And that's what worked for him. And I guess it's that's kind of spirit that was so palpably perfect about him when NXT eventually got a hold of him, because that's exactly what they capitalized on with him to get to where he was going to get. He was talented in the ring, but it wasn't necessarily his wrestling that got him over.
No, it was his promos and his character work, because people loved it when he was a villain or a babyface, and he could do both very, very well.
Seamlessly. Could talk his ass off.
I just find it funny that Ring of Honor was able to have the Undisputed Era before the Undisputed Era was the Undisputed Era.
Well, there was a time when Ring of Honor...
It's fast, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's especially considering that Ring of Honor, for a very long time, was known for getting their talent gouged and then just making new stars. And they did that for a very long time. They were just able to include and add depth to their roster in places that you wouldn't expect it. And the people who benefited the most from that are probably Fish, O'Reilly, and Adam Cole. And
Right,
also
because-
Damian Priest as Punishment Martinez. I'll give him the nod as well. And Owens and Zayn and the list
Well,
goes
that's
on.
the thing is that Tyler Black's gone. Let's bring in El Generico and Kevin Steen. Oh, they're gone? Okay, let's do Undisputed Era, or at that time, Future Shock, as they were known.
Yep.
Matt Taven, AJ Styles, as you said earlier. They just keep bringing in these guys that they keep finding, training, and working. And it's sad that Ring of Honor isn't what it is anymore.
Yeah. No, and it definitely is. It's difficult, but you know, not to say that it's gone, because they're definitely still trying to keep at least the memory of it alive. But there was a time when Adam Cole was the the number one most important guy on Ring of Honor's roster.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know,
Now,
there was a time when he was the guy they wanted. You know, the fact that Fish and O'Reilly came with him to NXT was great, but really what people were clamoring for was some Adam Cole in a major name company.
and WWE is that company. Now, here's the thing. Adam Cole, as we know him, came to NXT in 2017. But can you guess the first time that Adam Cole actually appeared on WWE TV and why he appeared?
I'm probably not correct because he had to have been like an extra somewhere for a main roster thing. If you're going to give me a trick question like this, it can't just be when they showed up in 2018, you know, as the Undisputed Era.
Well, you are actually correct. Now, I'm going to give you the events of this, okay?
Okay.
So, WWE offered him a tryout to wrestle for them, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, this was sent to the wrong person. The tryout was actually meant for a person by the name of Austin Watson, who would eventually become Xavier Woods.
Okay.
So WWE instead offered him the opportunity as an extra. So what ended up happening is that he was an extra in a scene with Serena Deeb when she was drinking for that straight edge society thing that happened with CM Punk during the Undertaker feud.
Okay.
Because they had told the story that the Undertaker was attacked and Kane was looking for someone who attacked the Undertaker. He thought it was CM Punk, and Serena Deeb provided the alibi that she was drinking and CM Punk was helping him the night that the Undertaker was attacked. But you can see Serena Deeb drinking with Adam Cole in that bar.
Well, that is fascinating. I did not know that. That's a very interesting
In grainy footage, in grainy security footage.
I'm gonna have to take a look at that. That's very interesting. That's quite a nice little titty bit you got there.
Thank you, Wikipedia, my friends. Anyways,
we're not shy about it.
We're not shy about it. So he actually debuted on August 14th, 2017 at TakeOver Brooklyn 3, attacking the newly crowned NXT champion Drew McIntyre with Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly as the Undisputed Era. And I will say this is the first time I actually saw them, and I thought, you know what, they're small, but they have attitude, they have personality. Let's see where it goes, right?
And the crowd went ballistic when they showed up. I remember watching that show live, and everybody lost their gourd when those three popped up and took down Drew McIntyre.
Exactly. And then they ended up, their biggest thing, the first big thing that they did was winning the first War Games at NXT TakeOver War Games, ironically enough, against Sanity and Authors of Pain.
Which was also quite a fun match, I do recall.
Even if that match also did get a little spot heavy.
Well, it's a War Games match. I mean, even the old War Games matches were a little spot heavy.
Right. Adam Cole, he then would go on to feud with Aleister Black. He appeared at the Royal Rumble. And then, well, which, by the way, Michael Cole ruined that entrance.
Like usual.
And then at TakeOver New Orleans, he is the inaugural NXT North American champion winning what I arguably think is one of the greatest ladder matches in the history of NXT.
You could put that ladder match arguably at the top of a lot of ladder match lists because of how well, I mean, obviously it's a 6-man ladder match and it's pandemonium, but that match outdoes a lot of the Money in the Bank matches that we've seen over the past several years. That match laps a lot of Money in the Banks, including the Run-Up Titan Towers one.
We're not even going to get
which we're not going to get into.
Which, by the way, side note, NXT TakeOver War Games, not War Games, NXT TakeOver New Orleans, that show may be my favorite wrestling show that NXT has ever done.
It was quite an adventure. That whole show was quite a good show.
And it was universally praised because that ladder match was a 5-star match from Dave Meltzer back when that meant something.
Well, if it meant something.
Well, at the time it did, until he started doing 6- and 7-star matches.
Right, and then started being a massive AEW mark.
Yep, and then also the Gargano and Ciampa match that they had, the unsanctioned match, that was the end of the show. That was really good.
And that was one of my favorite NXT matches of all time, I think.
It probably is my favorite NXT match of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
It's definitely up there. He loses the title to Ricochet, although famously that match was the match that Adam Cole super kicked Ricochet while he was in midair upside down.
Yes, I remember that spot.
Honestly, Adam Cole should have won with that spot because there's no way you could top it.
Yeah, well, that's actually probably a fair point.
But it is what it is. And then Adam Cole, he wrestles a little bit, and then he becomes the NXT champion, defeating Johnny Gargano at TakeOver New York in a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Which I recall being incredibly long.
Well, actually, hold on. Sorry. Gargano beat Cole in that match. Cole won at TakeOver 25.
Right, because I remember watching that 2 out of 3 falls match and it going a really long time, and I think I actually skipped to the next match on that basis because it went like 40 minutes, if I recall, that following match.
Let me take a look.
It was a long match. I remember that both of the matches that Gargano and Cole had were sizable in length.
Well, here's the thing, is that match was the main event, and it was 38 minutes and 25 seconds.
Yeah, oof.
By the way, how are they supposed to top Walter versus Pete Dunne in a 25-minute match?
Which I recall being a great match.
But again, another long match. Like Triple H, you got to get your matches.
Yeah, you got to tone it down. Well, that's why they only had 5 matches of pay-per-view, because everybody was going long.
They were going to get time, damn it.
They're getting their money's worth out of each one of those 5 matches.
Oh, no doubt. So then, he becomes the NXT champion. He becomes the longest reigning NXT champion. The other members of Undisputed Era get titles. Roderick Strong becomes the North American champion. Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish are the tag team champions.
And it was a great time.
It was a great time. He showed up on SmackDown and wrestled against Daniel Bryan. That was great.
Yeah, that was out of nowhere, too.
Famously, that was because they were doing a Saudi Arabian show. They couldn't get back in time because the Saudi Arabians held the WWE roster ransom for money.
Right. Stay tuned for that Dark Side of the Ring episode.
So they had to get creative because they were going to build a Survivor Series. So they made a last-minute call. We're like, okay, we have to have NXT get involved because we need people that are available.
Yeah, what a weird situation that was. And that was the last show that they went on to Saudi Arabia until the one most recently.
Yep. And then Cole just kept putting in good work as the defending champion, even if he did lose the title. He lost the title to Keith Lee, the North American champion at the time, in a winner-takes-all match, ending Cole's reign at 403 days. Yeah, which was a very sizable reign for someone like Adam Cole. But again, even though his wrestling was really good, what really got him there was his personality. Little dude, because he's still a little guy compared to most of the people he wrestled, but it didn't matter because he was
his personality had only gotten larger from the time that we had seen him in Ring of Honor because it was cultivated. Now it was broadcast better. And
here's my question: do you have a comparable for Adam Cole, or is he just Adam Cole?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'd have to think about it because I think there is some comparisons to people you could make the case for. But I'm just none of them are really coming to mind at the moment.
I think the most obvious one, just because of the super kick and the stature, it would be Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Actually,
I guess.
During halftime heat, Shawn Michaels was on commentary and said, "Adam Cole reminds me of a young me."
Yeah, wow. Shawn Michaels said something that was more a compliment to himself than it was to the person he was talking about. I'm shocked.
Well, hopefully Adam Cole doesn't lose his smile.
I know. Well, there's time. Well, no, otherwise he would never have actually gotten pinned in his entire life. If Adam Cole were truly like Shawn Michaels, then there would have been no giving the belt to Keith Lee. It would have been, oh, I got my knees hurt and my back hurts, and I'm not going to drop the belt.
I've been carrying this company on my back for 403 days. I think I can carry it a little bit longer. I just need a little bit more gold. I'll take Keith Lee's.
Yeah. Or if Triple H said to Cole, "Hey, you're dropping the belt to Keith Lee." "Oh man, my back. I think I need to go surgery that now."
Or he would say, "Listen here, Keith Lee's a piece of shit, like Shawn Michaels did the Vader."
Well, that was also all that was about was just forgetting a spot, which is really not that big a deal. But in any case, how did this get to be about Shawn Michaels? This is Adam Cole is not Shawn Michaels because he was doing a tremendous job with it, and it was a presentation.
So much so that he had a late feud of the year contender with Pat McAfee of all people.
Well, and that's no knock on Pat because Pat definitely held his own in that match and looked like he deserved to be in that match. Also worth noting, say what you want about Bad Bunny because he did a good job, but you look at Bad Bunny and you're like, nah. You look at Pat McAfee and you're like, okay, this dude could actually, if he wanted to, be a pro wrestler based on how he's done, the promos he's cut, his physical build, he's got something there. It just so happened to be a one-off. But both of those guys did a really good job in that matchup.
Well, actually, it was a two-off because they did that one-on-one match, and then they did the War Games match with Pat McAfee's crew versus the Undisputed Era, which was awesome.
Right.
But then he turns heel, super kicking Finn Balor and the rest of the Undisputed Era after helping out Balor for some reason. And he began a heel turn, which resulted in a great feud with Kyle O'Reilly. I implore anyone to watch this feud. Like, granted, they feuded before, but this was both of them in their primes, complete wrestlers.
I didn't see much of these matches, to be honest with you. And
that's true, because this was during the pandemic, and it was tough because, of course, it's not the same without people.
Yeah. And
there was stupid Thunderdome entered NXT, goddammit.
And that was the thing. I couldn't... If I was going to deal with the Thunderdome with WWE main roster programming, I really did not want to get any more. I didn't want it to hurt my image of what NXT is and was. And I know it's the circumstances that you have at the time, right? I'm not knocking that or disputing that, but I found myself kind of falling off the wagon with NXT at this point, and it wasn't because the talent was bad or anything like that. It's just that the matches were so long. And they would be forever, and then they'd turn into spot fests, and, like you said, Sky, it's Triple H-isms. And it was kind of getting stagnant for me. I thought that there needed to be some sort of revamp that wasn't just giving it a bunch of colors, which is what is so tone deaf about this new NXT, but, it was getting stagnant, and Cole, he wasn't necessarily the problem, but he wasn't necessarily the solution either.
I think this is a symptom of an issue that NXT started to have late stage, and that was guys who were overstaying their welcome. Eventually, Shinsuke moved up, and Finn Balor moved up, and Samoa Joe moved up. But guys like Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, they didn't move up when they probably should have.
Well, because they didn't want to, because they knew what happened to every single NXT guy up to that point.
Exactly. They were not going to get the pushes that they were receiving at that time. And while they would have made less money, it was less travel. It was less work. And why should they have to kill themselves if they're going to be treated like that on the main roster?
Well, and also, I think the fact that reactionarily NXT was put head-to-head with AEW during the pandemic was also a horrible idea for what NXT was doing. And it didn't help either. You know, it just didn't help either that their product was starting to get stagnant. Their talent, while NXT needed their own stars to be their own company, they had spent, like you said, 4 or 5 years just as NXT on their own, so that when AEW came along and it was fresh as much crap as it was kind of that same tribalistic thing of, well, we've seen what NXT has, what does AEW have? And that didn't help matters either. And I think that by necessity, Cole recognized that and realized, especially when AEW was very clearly winning, decided that it was time to go.
Right. There was definitely a sense of a need for a fresh start for Adam Cole and for a lot of guys that were part of that NXT group.
Now that Johnny's gone and Kyle's gone, right? Kyle O'Reilly's now out of there.
Well, that's the thing, is that Adam Cole joined AEW, and he joins in, and his debut kind of sucks because he kicks Marco Stunt, he does all this cool stuff, and then Daniel Bryan debuts right after him. Yeah,
and it was something that they did a really good job of devaluing Cole very quickly. Not even by associating them with the Bucks. That's not even the issue, because he and the Bucks were friends from the start. They were always good friends, and that was probably going to happen regardless, because the Elite kicked him out when Adam Cole came to NXT. And then he was going to come back, and it was Omega who kicked Adam Cole out to become the member of the Bullet Club at the time. And that's how Adam Cole became what he ended up being in NXT, and then came back, and be a part of that. That wasn't the issue. But then Bryan Danielson comes back, and that's obviously the bigger return. And then Cole just started doing all the stuff the Bucks have been doing and started doing indie bullshit.
It was one of those things where when he was in NXT, I was looking at this match because I wanted to look at Cole in his prime in NXT. I just noticed Adam Cole never had a physique. He never had muscles on his arms or his chest or his abs. Like Tommaso Ciampa, he's ripped.
Yeah. Cole is not.
Was never that.
Cole is not. And it's actually really interesting that Triple H would give Adam Cole that much love and appreciation, especially considering that one of Triple H's biggest critiques of CM Punk was that he was skinny fat.
But I think the difference is that Adam Cole, when he was in NXT, he was presented as this cool, smug guy that he's cocky, he's arrogant, he buys his shit, but he's so good you can't stop him. He was a jock, and a jock in the sense of he believes that he can do anything, but in reality he cheats. Like, he was presented in a way that made it work for NXT at the time, right?
Yeah, it's just a shame, realistically, because now he's been here, 6 months? How long has he been in AEW? Probably not even that long. Probably.
Daniel Bryan showed up in October?
Yeah.
Same night as him, so it's only been 3 months, really.
Yeah, and boy, do I not give a crap about Adam Cole at this point.
Like, when he was brought in, he was probably either going to be the number 2 guy behind CM Punk. At least that's what we thought at first, right?
Yep.
But Bryan Danielson immediately pushed him to the secondary. And then Adam Page winning the title really relegated Cole to now being like the 3rd or 4th guy.
And then that 6-man tag that he lost with Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Christian, when it was the super duper elite, who are nice and big and strong and not at all children.
Watch me as I have my friends run the ropes and then kiss me on the cheek, and then they super kick Jungle Boy.
So
who had
dumb.
thumbtacks in his mouth.
Dude, please don't remind me of that. And that wasn't
Josh,
even the
you
worst
getting-
match on the show. That match wasn't even the worst thing. There were actually redeeming qualities to that match, but still, it's Adam Cole. After all the treatment that he had gotten in NXT, all the value that had been put into his name and into his brand, and then he comes to AEW and he turns into a goof. Because Tony Khan doesn't know how to tell somebody no. Don't do this, it'll hurt your gimmick.
Listen, you are Adam Cole. You are not going to be associating yourself with the Young Bucks, or you're going to be associating yourself with the fucking Orange Cassidy, or you're going to be associating with Danhausen.
It's like, this is, I don't know, it
I
feels
would not
like
be
a hit
surprised
job,
if
but I
Adam
think
Cole
it's just
feused
pure
with
ignorance.
Danhausen.
Yeah, I bet he
Like,
will. I bet he
because
will.
he got cursed, apparently.
Yes, of course, by the teeth that Danhausen brings to the ring. And so, even though it feels like a hit job on Adam Cole, but I genuinely think it's just ignorance. And I'm disappointed that Cole is just indulging in that. But again, it's the Wild West in AEW. You know, where everyone's working at the textile factory in Vince McMahon's world, where they're all making the same shirts at the same price with the same value, which is not that very quality. And then everybody's just out shooting and hollering and shooting off cap guns at each other in AEW.
It's just that Adam Cole, he got the opportunity to work in NXT. One of the biggest things that he ever done. He got a major push, but he saw the writing on the wall because he realized that he was never going to get what he wanted from Vince McMahon. And he's like, you know what? I want to wrestle with my friends and my girlfriend, and I don't want anything else. I don't want to achieve higher status than anyone else in this business. I just want to spend time with my friends.
And all the more power to him, I guess. But for people who really wanted to see him be a big deal and actually who believe that he probably could draw money if given the right presentation and draw actual money, I just...
Listen, I'm not angry at Adam Cole. Adam Cole
I'm not
can do
either.
what he wants.
It's his choice, right? At the end of the day, it's his choice.
It's just disappointing because it felt like at the time with Undisputed Era and NXT, Adam Cole could have been more.
Should have been.
And should have been more. Like, he's a legitimately talented guy. He did not get to where he is without the wrestling ability that he has, and the storytelling, and the charisma. But it's one of those things where Adam Cole has a limit on what he's going to be able to do in AEW, and that limit has been put there by Adam Cole.
And unfortunately, Tony Khan is not going to be the one to tell him, hey, listen, it's time to shape up. This ain't going to be how you end your career just by being in Clown Show City. You know, this is something there you need to take responsibility. Let's all take responsibility. And little did I think that the second that Adam Cole dropped in AEW, they'd be copying my gimmick for him, which is basically indie simp. Realistically, and it's,
continue.
Realistically, that's what he is right now. And trust me, when you hear ACPW and how we're going to end up resolving Adam Cole, don't you worry. It's going to be better than anything AEW does with him. But it's just, I hope that maybe because he is top ranked, even though they're doing this stupid stuff and they hurt their booking more than they help, that it will still lead to Adam Cole at some point being viewed as the big deal he used to be. But will the damage have already been done?
I don't know. Time will tell. But I'm just hoping that Adam Cole, that maybe now that he has Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish and his girlfriend, maybe things will be different. Maybe once he leaves the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, which is going to happen at some point because that's the long-term storytelling that they have.
Yep.
That Adam Cole can be Adam Cole again, baby.
Yeah, me too. I genuinely hope for that too. Hopefully he will be able to reascend to the ranks of wrestling's finest.
That was a good ending, man. That was a good ending. I gotta give you props.
But this is your show.
This is my show, but Sean just sliding in like Chris Jericho saying, "I've still got it."
Yeah, but without, well, I was going to say without nearly the amount of pounds, but it was a very fun week in Florida, so I can't even say that either.
And speaking of that, we're looking forward to the next weekend because it is Royal Rumble review time. And the only way that you're going to get the Royal Rumble review is if you like, share, and subscribe to the Court-Martail podcast. We may have Josh again on. We may do a simulcast. You never know. But only you can find out by tuning in. Sean, I will see you at the Royal Rumble review.
I will see you at the Royal Rumble review for as good or bad or as whatever WWE gives us.
Damn straight. And we will see all of you there right after this commercial break.